So I think the first thing to sort of recognise is that in some ways our families are no different than a lot of families, that they are being impacted by the cost of living crisis and the things that are going on. Day-to-day costs like food, energy, etc., all presenting challenges and problems for those we support. But there are very specific things, as you can imagine, in relation to having a family member in prison that create extra challenges. Having a family member in prison immediately has an impact on their overall household income, whether that is through the loss of earnings, the person that was previously in the household and the job and the money that they brought into the household, but also it can be around recalibration of benefits. If the household has been on some kind of benefits before the person's gone into prison, that can take a while then to sort out. Obviously the benefits will stop. Can be a really anxious period for a family. So fundamentally, that kind of change in the household income and a loss of income has a massive impact. And often, a lot of the families we support, they're often families that are already on low incomes or haven't got a lot of disposable income. So that loss of income can have a real impact, not just in terms of the actual material financial loss, but the additional stress causes emotionally and can have physical impacts. Let's be right and understand that people are having to make difficult decisions about heating and eating and activities, and that has both an emotional and a physical impact. I think one of the difficulties as well is that often families are kind of powerless to be able to do anything about it. Say you're the remaining partner at home and therefore you have to take greater responsibility for looking after children. Those choices about working and what you can do in terms of going to work and the amount of hours you can do and the sort of jobs you can do, that becomes even more difficult when potentially you've got a partner in prison or a family member in prison and you're having to make decisions for the wider family. It could be that someone's a single parent now, or it could be that someone's actually a grandparent, a kind of kinship carer for children for the first period of time. And you can imagine adjusting to them financial costs when you're on a pension or receiving other kinds of benefits can be really, really difficult. At the moment, a lot of people feel like they're doing everything they can already in terms of costs and to managing their income and are in receipt of benefits. But we do, obviously, as a local community-based organisation, work with other fantastic charities and organisations across Greater Manchester to ensure that we can support people and help people. So we do have connections to local food banks and are able to support in terms of that. We have on occasion assisted people with utility payments or making contact with their utility provider or their landlord to help with some of their housing and heating costs. And we also have good links into schemes to help with some of the bigger items that can really be a drain on our family's income. For example, we've helped with school uniforms. We have connections into organisations that can help with white goods. A classic example is when the washing machine goes or when the children get bigger and, people need extra beds. Bed poverty is becoming an increasing issue, but it is as well the day-to-day costs of actually supporting a family member in prison in terms of costs of communication, keeping in touch with family, any needs or wants that they might want while in prison, all to fall on family members on the outside. It's often called a hidden sentence, is that people don't realise these difficulties and the challenges that family members face. And family members can end up spending a significant amount of their income actually just based on the fact that they have someone in prison. So one of the reasons why we do family activities at half term or in the summer is because people do have to make those choices between, do I support this or do I, control this amount of spending in my finances? And does that mean then we can't go to the beach in the summer or we're not able to take part in half-term activities? So a lot of the work we do out there is about enabling people to still be able to take part in some of that stuff and for want of a better word, to do some of the nice things that enable them on the outside to still have a productive family life. I think the work that's done by a lot of organisations nationally in terms of, the negative impact of imprisonment and alternatives needs to be listened to. Do we need to keep sending people to prison at the rate we do? Because it does have these knock-on impacts, and there is an impact on families, and really what we should be doing is looking at the alternatives. But then when people who are in prison is considering then the cost of these things and whether anything can be done about communication and phone calls, people keeping in touch, wages within the prison system to enable it become less of a financial burden for people on the outside. It's very difficult having a family member in prison and life is never the same. But if we can offer some community-based support for those individuals, what we're hoping in some small way is to reduce some of the impact of those negative aspects of having someone in prison. And that's why we continue the work that we do.